I'd like to share with you some tips about how you can use better forms of marketing communication to help you reduce some of the negative impacts that you'll normally have in your tourism and hospitality business. And we've got 6 different ways in which we can do this, and we're going to cover in the next few minutes, because I think there's so many opportunities out there that we're not exploiting right now. So let me just take you through each one of them in turn. I think first of all, if we're going to ask a consumer to change their behavior, we need to ask nicely. Very often we do it in a really dry way, and I think we need to change some of the language. So looking at this particular beach cafe, for example, you can see that the mugs say, "Drink in the view, stunning, isn't it? We aim to keep it that way." And then in smaller text it says, "We use natural, toxic-free detergents and cleaning materials to prevent the damage to the beach, the sea, or any of the wildlife." And by using language that's much more emotive, and when you're asking things nicely, I think it just goes a long way. We've also seen that any signage that you put in your property, when you're using your logo and you have been desktop publishing it a little bit in a more creative way, and is consistent with other materials you use in your property, it just resonates much more with consumers. They're much more likely to listen to it and to be interested in it than if you don't put so much effort in the communication. So we've seen this, for example, when it comes to events. We've seen that by making your recycling bins much more colorful, people are much more likely to use them than if you use recycling bins that were really dull. Because they almost become like a trail of a tourist attraction in its own right within your own festival. We know that you can communicate messages that are much more trustworthy. So when your message says, "Please reuse your towel, save planet Earth," most people just don't really believe you anymore. Instead, you can find ways in which you can communicate in a way that resonates with people's values. So this particular restaurant, for example, yes, they do talk about sustainable dining, but mostly what they talk about is meet our great British food suppliers. And by emphasizing that element of promoting the quality of your suppliers, in effect, you're talking really nice about your own product. So think about it. Nobody likes you to say, "My business is great." It's a little bit like your favorite actor or actress going on television and saying, "I am really handsome" or "really beautiful." You probably look at them and think, "Oh, I've gone off you a little bit." Whereas if a third party said, "That person is really handsome," then you're okay with that. So what you're trying to do in here is get somebody else to say something good about you, and you in turn say something good about somebody else. If you say beautiful things about your suppliers, essentially, by implication, you're saying your business is really good, but you're doing it in a way that psychologists tell us is much more credible than if you had tried to communicate it, about yourself directly. It's also important that we write in a much more honest way. And when I say honest here, what I'm trying to say is customers do know that when you are reusing towels, for example, or encouraging them to reuse towels, essentially what you're doing is you are promoting a way of saving money for yourself as a business. And that doesn't go down particularly well. So we know that if you change your towel sign and it says something like 75% of guests that stayed in this hotel have reused their towels, customers are much more likely to do it. We're using essentially social norms. Or if when we're saying that 75% of guests that have stayed in this room have reused their towel, again, that works really well because customers they feel compelled to do it because they think this is the social norm. And also we've seen some hotel groups that they say for every 5 towels you are reusing, we will plant 1 tree. Or for every 5 towels you're reusing, we'll give this money to a local charity. Again, the emphasis there is you being much more honest and open about what you're trying to do, as opposed to making it sound like it's all about saving the planet, when essentially all you're trying to do is just save some money. We did an experiment along these lines in one hotel, a really large hotel in the Canary Islands. It was a place with more than 700 bedrooms. And what we found is we tested 5 different messages and we saw how many large towels and small towels were reused before and after. So I'm showing you here what the current message was, the message at the beginning of the experiment, and then I'm showing you which is the message that worked best at the end of the experiment. You can see the message that worked best. It just says, "Reuse me tomorrow, just like at home." Because I think if we're really honest, every one of us at home reuse our towels more than one day. As a result of this, in this particular property, we found that they essentially saved 13,000 euros per year. Obviously, it's a large property and you can see where we're coming from here, but it had a massive saving for this particular property simply by saving, by changing the kind of message that you had in the first place. Obviously, for a smaller property, the saving will be proportional, but it's still significant. You can save about 10 or 15% in terms of money as well as time in changing towels. And we know that you can also use humor, and humor is a complex thing. It varies a lot across different cultures. So in some places it will work better than others. So just experiment with these things, okay? We know it's much easier to change somebody's behavior by using humor than by using very direct orders. This particular sign comes from a property in Norfolk, in the east of England. And the sign was written deliberately so parents, but particularly children, would see it. We all know it's not the children who are smoking, but we all know that the best behavior and the best police of parents' behavior is really their children. So when the message basically says, smoking makes your teeth go horrid and your breath smells badly, the children just come to you and say, Daddy, does your breath smell? Are your teeth yellow and horrid? And this was a great way of making sure that the parents behave in a much more sustainable way. In this case, in this particular forest, which happens to be a beautiful attraction for children in Norfolk. It's called Bewilderwood. If you haven't been there, it's well worth a visit. Fifth and almost the final message I've got here for you today. Please, 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 if you want your customers to change their behavior, be much more engaging with the way in which you communicate it. So one way in which you can do this is you can work with a message that says, we have the same values. You and I think very similarly. And as a business, the moment you communicate in a way that is still professional, but showing that you and I could get to know each other and we could understand each other, customers are thinking that they're buying from somebody they can trust. So the example I'm giving you here from a soft adventure tour operator called Families Worldwide, they were basically saying, I'm finding every time more and more parents are really concerned about the fact that their kids just cannot really seem to be able to put down some of this technology and actually engage with the real world. And the beauty of this is that many of the customers are saying, yeah, I can relate to this. And this business essentially saying to you, I have designed holidays, so your children will be quite happy to put down that technology and actually engage with a place where we are going on holiday together. Sixth and final example for now, and then I'll let you have a rest. You need to make sure your messages are timely. And what do I mean by timely? There is no point in you communicating something today where you want the change in behavior from the customer to come tomorrow. And you'll say, oh, I don't do that. Well, of course you do. Many of your marketing messages essentially were sent to the customer through social media or through an email, hoping that they will remember it when they come and visit your place. That's never going to work really, or it's not going to work particularly well. So let me give you an example of timely communication from these devices that my research team has been installing in hotels. This device is called Aguardio and is built in Denmark, and you can buy it directly yourself if you want to. We've tested in more than 25,000 showers in hotels and youth hostels and student residences. What we found is that by installing this in the shower, when the shower is turned on, it starts to tell you the length of time of your shower. And by seeing the length of time of your shower, you reduce your shower length by 15%. And when this device then has next to it a message, depending on what the message is, we've managed to reduce shower length by 30%, particularly in student halls of residence and youth hostels. And it does depend on what the message is going to be, but ultimately the beauty here is that you tell people, look, please, use less water because this is good. It's good for the planet to actually use less water, and you'll be able to make a difference. And then if you tell them the average shower length in this property is 3 minutes, 30 seconds, for example, we've seen that people move much more towards that norm, the thing that we've told them is normal. But if you just told them, please reduce the shower length, but you didn't give them the timer to show them how effective their behavior change is, then we have noticed that obviously you're not as empowering as when you give them that timely message, and you are able to give them some feedback on what you want them to do. So I hope that these examples were helpful to you. I hope you can apply them in some of your businesses, and I can't wait to show you some more examples in our second video, which looks at how do you increase market demand through customer communications.